Some cryptids are born of the wild, others are manufactured by society. The Melon Heads are a profound living tragedy, a population of severely disabled individuals abandoned by the state, left to devolve into something feral and terrifying. Project HYDROPLEX is the intelligence designation. The file is a critical analysis of ethical accountability, a biological nightmare that started with a bureaucratic failure to track its most vulnerable citizens after state institutions were closed. The sheer grotesque nature of their morphology forced the NIH to classify them as a devolved human subspecies. This wasn't mythology, it was a medical horror. Today, using highly specific declassified intelligence memos filed under CIA RDP80/NIH Mutation Isolation Series, we undertake the investigation into Project HYDROPLEX. We will expose the institutional secrets and terrifying biological cost of human abandonment. All sightings directly correlate with the closure of remote psychiatric hospitals. When staff left, a subset of patients, the non-ambulatory, the cognitively impaired, or the severely deformed, were unaccounted for. This small forgotten population became the beginning of the Melon Heads. Forced into the wild, the survivors quickly shed human behavioral norms. Their struggle for resources in the remote surrounding forest drove them to feral, highly aggressive scavenging tactics, a necessary devolution for survival. An FBI initial review confirmed this feral shift in 1985, saying, "The entity population has demonstrated sophisticated evasion tactics and hyper-aggressive scavenging protocols necessary for survival in a non-subsidized environment. The observed behavior pattern is consistent with a rapid anthropological regression to a feral state within 1 to 2 generations, confirming the HMV classification." End quote. Beyond the immediate threat, the NIH was forced to analyze the public health risk. An unmonitored, highly isolated, and genetically compromised human population living in unhygienic conditions poses a massive risk as a disease vector for novel or re-emergent pathogens that could jump back into the general population. The creature's habitat, remote water sources, proximity to poorly maintained landfills only amplified the potential for genetic and environmental contamination. An NIH public health assessment confirmed the high-risk status in 1986. Here's a quote. "The existence of an unaccounted HMV population exhibiting extreme biological deviations creates a high-risk scenario for novel zoonotic vector transmission and gene pool contamination. The environmental stress and likely poor hygiene mandate the classification of the habitat as a Level 3 biological exclusion zone for proactive disease monitoring." End quote. The signature feature, the massive cranium, had direct impacts on the creature's locomotion. The extreme weight of the head, combined with skeletal deficiencies caused by poor diet, rickets/low bone density, forced the creatures into a low, hunched, shuffling gait. This walk made them appear smaller and more disturbing, contributing to their aggressive behavior, which was often defensive, a product of their physical limitations and heightened state of fear. An NIH bioforensic review detailed the pathology's impact on movement. This is a quote from 1988. "The extreme cranial mass and pronounced long bone fragility, likely induced by severe vitamin D deficiency, necessitates a low, shuffling, hunched gait for stability. This pathological locomotion profile confirms the short stature and contributes to the population's observed fear-based hyperaggression." End quote. The diet of the Melon Heads, scavenged roadkill, local wildlife, and garbage, was profoundly deficient. The lack of proper protein and essential vitamins amplified their congenital defects. The resulting skeletal decay, rickets, and severe dental degradation is as much a feature of the cryptid as the head size. Their short, hunched stature is the physical evidence of institutional starvation and neglect. A CIA nutritional assessment linked the diet to anatomy. A quote from the CIA RDP80 nutritional pathology report from 1990 reads the following quote. The assumed survival diet, high starch, low protein, severe lack of essential vitamins, is sufficient to induce rapid osteodecay and developmental stunting. The observed skeletal profile is a direct result of chronic malnutrition, confirming that the creature's morphology is a combination of congenital defect and institutional environmental failure. End quote. The concept of the ethical blind zone is critical here. These remote institutions, often far from urban centers, operated with minimal external oversight, creating perfect conditions for unethical practices and administrative neglect. Analysts calculated that starting with a compromised population, it would only take 2 to 3 generations, around 50 to 75 years, for the most debilitating recessive traits like severe hydrocephalus to become dominant features. The Melon Heads represent the tragic end state of this genetic timeline. An NIH genetic risk assessment confirmed the outcome of inbreeding. This is from 1989. Quote, calculated genetic decay models confirm that forced reproductive isolation of a small compromised institutional population results in the rapid phenotypic expression of recessive alleles with 3 generations. The HMV population demonstrates the expected cranial skeletal abnormalities consistent with extreme recessive homozygosity linked to isolation within the defined ethical blind zone. End quote. The NIH's operational objective was not to capture but covert biological sample collection, hair, blood, or tissue, to map the mutation. This was vital for public health risk assessment. The attempts failed. The creature's feral nature and hyperaggression made collection too dangerous. They proved highly adept at avoiding human contact, disappearing into the dense, overgrown grounds of their former prison. The failure meant the true extent of genetic deviation remains officially unknown. An NIH internal memo noted the failure to obtain genetic material as, quote, this is from 1992, all deployed remote collection matrices failed to yield viable HMV genetic material. The subject population exhibits an acute avoidance of all non-conventional stationary objects and demonstrates high-level organized evasion tactics against human incursion. The continued lack of genetic blueprints severely compromises long-term disease vector analysis. End quote. Project HYDROPLEX is the file that revealed the dark intersection of human neglect and biological mutation. The Melon Heads are a terrifying living testament to the ethical failures of institutions, a grotesque secret hiding in our backyards. The CIA's final biological assessment came in 1992. It reads, quote, the melonhead population is definitively categorized as a devolved human subspecies resulting from environmental stress and catastrophic genetic isolation. While posing a minimal localized threat, the file confirms a severe institutional containment failure level 4, requiring permanent monitoring of the mutation vector. End quote. We've covered the genetic tragedy of institutional failure. Now we dive into a phenomenon that defies biology and physics, the complete untraceable erasure of human beings from the face of Earth. Next time we are pivoting to a disturbing file on repeated, systematic, and utterly inexplicable disappearances. Project Vacuum, the FBI and NTSB analysis of the Bennington Triangle in Vermont between the 1940s and 1950s. We will analyze the intelligence reports on the multiple high-profile cases of individuals vanishing without a struggle, tracks, or evidence in this specific geographic zone. We'll use the FBI/NTSB abduction atmospheric memos in the CIA RDP80 geophysical absence series to assess the core question. Was the Bennington Triangle a site of unique localized atmospheric anomalies, an environmental flaw that causes instant disintegration or spatial displacement, or was it the target of a non-conventional abduction vector utilizing a mechanism that leaves absolutely no trace of its victims? The documented truth of Project HYDROPLEX proves that human experiments leave lasting scars, and if this deep dive into the archives has captured your focus, your support is vital as we investigate the place where people simply cease to exist. I'll see you in the archives.